Torch here. This is a E-250 Ford van, 2001, and I noticed my gas tank was dripping. So I crawled underneath, and sure enough, it was rotten. So I had to go buy a new one. $200, which actually I didn't think was too bad until I got it, and there's a big stamp on the top, made in Taiwan. So that wasn't very happy, but oh well, till we get the steel things running here in America again. I suppose we're still gonna have to deal with that. But anyway, I had to use my old vents, which really sucks because these things tend to break when you take them out. But luckily I got these out without breaking them. But I broke the stupid fuel pressure sensor here. And these things just twist in and pop out, kind of like a gas cap deal. And the old one did not want to come out, and I played with it and played with it and played with it, and all of a sudden, snap! So I had to run out and get another one. $100 almost for that damn thing. So that kind of sucked. And I'm using my old fuel pump because it was working just fine. I was having no issues. So, and the bolt size for that, what are these? Yeah, it's a 5/16 for those, in case anybody wants to know. I like to include my bolt sizes for you guys so you don't have to jumble around like I do trying to find sockets when you got a big giant mess like this. And I figured while I'm in there, look how crusty that filler neck is. So I bought a new filler neck. That is 3 bolts right there. And those were, what is this? $9.32. Boy, that's amazing. And then for the gas tank straps, I bought new ones because mine were so rusted. I was like, I know I'm not even going to be able to get them off. I had to cut them off. And that really sucks, trying to cut something off when you got a leaking gas tank. But anyway, these nut sizes here, this is a 17 millimeter for that. And of course I put it on there and tried getting these off, and nope, it just spun and spun and spun. There was just nothing. So the bad thing about it though is I cut it off here. See this little knob there? I cut it off here because here's the frame, and then the nut comes down on top of there, and I'm figuring, well, I can just pull it down through. Well, no, that didn't work out very well, because when I cut the nut off, I couldn't get down on the frame enough to cut it off without making a ton of sparks and blowing myself up in the driveway. So I just ended up cutting it off here and then bending those back around, and those just slide in a little slot on the frame. So then I had to bring it in the garage here when there's no gas leaking and grind this off on top of the frame. It's right behind the back wheel. You can see that little hole up there. That's where that was coming through. Right there, should be in the center of your screen at the top. That's the hole. So there wasn't a whole lot of room to really get in there. So I really didn't want to be making all them sparks with gas leaking all over the place. So anyway, that's what I'm up to. And what was the gas line size? Oh, I'll have to find that. Hold on a minute. Alright, I'm underneath the truck. The gas line size, the fitting is a 3/8, and what you do, you just slide that on the line, and then you push this in. Well, first you got to pop these little clips off of the line, which I don't know, they're kind of a joke if you ask me, because I think the rest of it holds it on just fine. These things just get in the way. But anyway, let's see if, can you see those little clips in there? It's like 4 of them, but this just slides in there, and then you push it in, and then you can pull the line off. Make sure that that pushes in all the way, because you really don't want to damage these lines, because as you can see, runs the whole length of the truck, and I don't think you can just patch them in here to fix them. I already got rust on them, so that kind of sucks. I hope they don't go out on me anytime soon. But anyway, here's the other vent hose, which I had to cut off with a razor blade. There's like no way they wanted to come off. And since I'm not replacing my fuel pump, I did a little bit of prevention here for in the future if it does fail. I cut a hole in the floor where the fuel pump is. So, you know, it won't really affect anything now, because the inside of this van, I got, you know, I think it's 1/2 inch or 3/4 plywood inside of the whole van on the floor. So I just cut out where the fuel pump is to make myself a little access door, and then I drilled holes up in each corner, so if the day comes that I have to cut that out, all I got to do is line up those holes and take my circular saw and cut that plywood out, and then I'll have access to my fuel pump. So I really didn't want to waste the money on the fuel pump, because it was like, I don't know, 170 bucks. I already paid $200 for the tank, $100 for the stupid sensor I broke, and the gas hose for this, the fill hose, is like almost $100. I don't know what's so special about it. I wanted to use a hunk of radiator hose, but I couldn't find one that is that size, so they're just nailing you on the size. But I'm gonna try and clean up some of this rust. But so anyway, that's where that hose is, over there in a little plastic bag. $100 for that. The thing ain't even really a foot long. It's probably about, well, it might be a foot long. I don't know. I'll have to line it up against a Subway sub and see if it's really a foot long. Haha. But anyway, so yeah, I already got a lot of money invested in just changing this tank, so I was like, I'm not changing the fuel pump if it doesn't need it. So fingers crossed, say a prayer, and hope it lasts a long time and doesn't leave me stranded on the side of the road. But if it does, at least I know I have an access door here now to get into and get at it, instead of dropping this tank again, which is a giant nightmare. Because like I said, those straps were just rusted on here, and then you got to drop the tank down a little bit. You can't go too far because these wires aren't long enough. So you got to put your jack on you got to put your gas tank on a jack with a nice big long 2x4 or something underneath it to lower it down enough to where you can get your hands in here and unplug these things. There's 2 plugs, one for the fuel pump, one for the pressure sensor. Then you got the 2 fuel lines, so you got to get all that stuff disconnected before you can take the tank out. And then the vent hoses, which, like I said, I just cut them because I'm just replacing those with a 3/8-inch gas line, which should be plenty, because the crap that was on there looked like it was basically vacuum hose, or it might have been gas line at one time, but it's a piece of vacuum hose now. It's so deteriorated. So anyway, and then I had to come up in here and cut those hoses off flush at the tank, because of course those wouldn't come off, and even if I could get them off, I wouldn't have wanted to reuse them because they were so nasty. But yeah, that's what the straps look like. I got 2 of them. So I mean, I got a lot of money invested in this already. Now I know why. I mean, man, that's like $500-600, and then it would have been another $100 for the. Well, no, 100 and what the? It was like 150 or 170 for another fuel pump, and I was just like, no, I'm just gonna cut a door and pray that it keeps working, because it was working just fine. So anyway, now I'm gonna go underneath there and caulk up that hole so no water gets inside the truck, and I can just cut that out whenever I have to replace that fuel pump. Hopefully not. These plastic things go on here in between the tank. These are the old ones. I had to scrub them down and clean them, because with the new straps, of course, they didn't give me those. It's like a plastic rubber kind of thing, but these things were just so full of rust. I had to clean them and scrub them down with an SOS pad and get most of it off. Still a little bit there, but... And then I painted the straps too with a good oil-based paint, Rust-Oleum, if you want to know. And I painted the tank with that too, because the tank was supposed to be painted, but of course it comes in the mail and it wasn't painted. So I'm like, oh great, I don't want it rusting out again that fast. Even though it only took 20 years for this one, the old one, to rust out, but still, I don't want it rusting out. Torch likes to keep everything working and running forever, because it's still way cheaper than car payments, I believe. And I can fix it myself. So, anyway, yeah, basically that's about all the information I think I can give you on this, without actually showing you video of me dropping the tank and putting the new one in. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory if you're gonna do this kind of thing yourself. That is a big tank, man. I mean, look at it. That thing is just, I'm guessing it's like 50 gallons. Because it's so long. This thing is like, yeah, it's like 6 feet long. So if you figure a 55-gallon drum is like, what are they, like 4 feet high? I mean, man, it's gotta be, yeah, 55-gallon drum I think is like 4 feet high. Because that's a 36-gallon garbage can, and like a 55-gallon drum would probably be a little bit higher like this. So yeah, that's probably like 50 gallons. So that's got to be 50, maybe even 60-gallon tank. I don't know, but that's a big gas tank, man. So anyway, yeah, basically I just put a 2x4 underneath it with a floor jack, cut off these straps. I had to cut them off here because I tried cutting them up here, but I couldn't get all of the nut off, and this binds up against the frame, so that wouldn't let me get them out. So I had to cut them down here to get them off. And the gas tank straps were so bad, I wasn't going to be able to save them anyway. And with the thing leaking gas, that was not fun. Talk about nerve-wracking. Being underneath there with a sawzall making sparks trying to cut those off. Had a fire extinguisher laying right there, but you know, still, when you're dealing with a gas tank that probably had about 5 gallons of gas in it, so that means the rest of it was full of fumes. So, and the fumes are what explode, not the gas, so that was a little scary. I was thinking about filling it up with water, but I was like, oh great, if I do that, it's probably going to get in my gas lines and screw something up somewhere. So I took the risk and I lived to tell the story. But anyway, yeah. And then I just dropped it down on the floor jack a little bit so I could get my hands in there to put in the disconnect for the fuel lines. Got the fuel lines off. And then I just cut the vent hoses and the gas hoses, you know, all the rubber stuff. I just cut it because it's like I'm going to replace it anyway. I had to. It was just so rotten. It wasn't even funny. I can't even believe. I mean, here's one of them. This one I actually, it's almost to length. But these things are just so rotted. I mean, look at this. I rubbed my finger on there. Look at all that. My hands were literally black from this stuff, and it took me 3 times of washing my hands with Dawn soap and a scrub brush just to get that stuff off. It was just horrible. So anyway, yep. And then let me see it. Put it on the floor jack with a 2x4 to kind of distribute the weight. Dropped it down a little bit, disconnected the gas lines, cut those lines off. Then I cut off the filler tube at the end there. You can still see it's on there. I just cut that off with a razor knife. The small one actually came off, which was surprising, but it didn't want to come off at the other end, so I cut it off of there. And then basically you just lower the tank down, and you know, these hook into the frame and turn sideways. So, and then they bolt up on this side on the frame on the outside. And then I just dropped it down on the floor, and then I had to put my plastic parts in and my fuel pump in, and now I'm going to put it back in. Maybe I'll do a little bit more video on putting it back in, but I don't know, it's kind of boring. I don't know. I mostly just wanted to show you guys, you know, the bolt sizes and tell you about that sensor being like $100, so be careful not to break it. If possible, I was as careful as I could be, and it still broke. So I mean, I even put WD-40 and stuff down in there to try to loosen it up, so there, you know, in case there was rust or anything in there. And it started spinning just fine, and then all of a sudden it just went snap. I was like, man. So anyway, alright, well, I hope this helps you guys out. If you have any questions about this project or any other things I've been doing that you see on my channel, please like and subscribe, comment, and I will help you out if I can. Alright, now I gotta caulk up that hole and get this gas tank back in here and hopefully get this thing back on the road, because I gotta do other work to it too yet, but I need it to be running right now, so gotta go. Torch out.